Everyone, in just a second, I'm going to be introducing author Mary Sharratt, and we're going to be talking about her brand new book, came out in April, called Ecstasy. If you have not read this book, you need to go read this book. Okay, I have lots of questions for her. It's historical fiction. It's about a woman composer in the beginning of the 1900s. Her name was Alma Schindler and then Alma Mahler. And oh, what an amazing book, really. 400 pages, and I read it all. And, like sometimes you think 400 pages, like, can I really do it? And this book, you can do it, okay? You will, and then you'll want her to write more. And I'm going to tell her, I want her to write the rest of her story. So, everyone, here is Mary. Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I am speaking with author Mary Sharratt, and we're going to be talking about her newest book called Ecstasy, which was just released in April, on April 10th. And I am so happy to talk to you, Mary. You have no idea. I did a video in April when this book came out. I always do live like Instagram and they disappear the next day. But I was like, when this book came out, I was like, Mary, call me, text me. I want to talk about this book. And
Oh,
then,
that's so nice.
yeah, and then I reached out to you and you said yes, and I was so excited. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
sorry, it's so exciting for me to be here. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no. I saw the cover and then I saw that it was a historical fiction and it was on Barnes and Noble's website, like read this book, and I was like, yes, I want to read this book and I want to talk to Mary.
Oh,
So
cool.
so this was kind of like I asked for it and the universe delivered it. So it was awesome. But
Wonderful.
yeah, I mean, okay, so I knew nothing about this woman. I mean, this book delivered more than I could have ever imagined as far as like historical fiction, biography. It was so beautiful. It was written so beautifully. And like I told you, I was listening and reading. And the woman, I didn't even look up her name. I wanted to, and I forgot. But the woman who did the audio is
Tavia Gilbert?
okay. She was so good. She was
Yeah.
amazing. Really. I just looked it up. She just encaptured like her heart. I felt like when I was
Yeah.
listening to it. I mean, so I am pleased to tell you how much I loved, how much I enjoyed listening to it as much as reading it.
Wonderful. That's so lovely to hear.
Yeah, for all, because there are a lot of people out there who love listening to audiobooks, so it's really important that it projects what I think that you wanted to with her. I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt like I was like in her sometimes I like listened instead of read because I wanted to hear it, and so that's all good. But I'm going to let you tell us what, because I don't like to do spoilers and I want you to tell everybody about Alma.
All right. Well, Alma Schindler Mahler was a female composer, muse, and life artist. So she was one of the most controversial women in the early 20th century. She was like the it girl of turn of the 20th century Vienna. Her husbands and lovers included composer Gustav Mahler, architect and Bauhaus founder Walter Gropius, artist Oskar Kokoschka, and poet and novelist Franz Werfel, but none of these men could truly claim to possess her because she was her own woman to the last. But she didn't start out that way. She started more conventionally as a very, very gifted, introspective, cerebral, creative young woman. I fell in love with her diaries, and she really, really wanted to be a composer. And so she was really working hard in that way. She was studying with Alexander von Semlinsky, who was her mentor and also her lover, but her parents disapproved of them and wouldn't let her marry him. But she really, really wanted to be a composer, and she was making progress. And then Gustav Mahler, the great composer, who is 20 years older than her, actually 19 to be precise, years older than her, fell in love with her at a dinner party and swept her off her feet and kind of, kind of swept her up in this whirlwind courtship that was so romantic and passionate she couldn't resist. And he was like a rock star. He was like the court opera director of Vienna, which was, you just have to imagine like the hottest rock star kind of sweeping you off your feet. And her parents approved that it was all good. And then he said, "Oh, but as a condition of our marriage, I want you to give up your own music. Okay?" And that, of course, broke her heart. But she was so in love with him and so in awe of him that she consented to this. And so the book basically dives deep into their marriage and all the kind of the aftermath of this kind of bargain she made with him and all the repercussions and everything that happened later.
Yeah, and that's how I wanted you to, show me like where to stop talking, because I want everybody to read this and experience her. I mean, you can look it up. I mean, because it's history, but I felt like it just was so much fun to read this book and experience her through your words. And, so I was like, I don't want to say too much about what happened in her life after she married him, but the book opens, and I love the way you say these names because I can't.
Oh, okay.
I can't. I was like, oh my gosh, I knew it would sound way more beautiful coming from your lips than mine. But
oh, thank you.
The book opens with her experiencing her first kiss, and it was so like, like nowadays it's like whatever, no big deal. But the way you described it, I was so like in the store. I don't know how to explain it. I was just like so romantic and through the eyes of a young woman, and I don't even want to try to say his name, so I'll let you say his name.
The artist Gustav Klimt.
Yes, Klimt. Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Alma's stepfather was Karl Moll, and he was an artist, and he was co-founder of the Vienna Secession art movement with Gustav Klimt. And Gustav Klimt was on vacation in Italy with Alma's family, and he kind of snuck into her room when no one else was there, and you have to read the book to find out what happens next. But yeah, so that really happened. Gustav Klimt gave her first kiss.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine the research when I got done. I was like, now the research that must have gone into this, and then of course at the end of the book, you do tell some of the research that you did do to write her story, and you couple of trips. What did you say? A couple of trips to Vienna, lots of operas, and
Yeah.
lots of fun stuff like that. But how many years did it take you to do all the research?
3.5 years. I mean, it was research and writing combined, but I read her diaries. I read Gustav Mahler's letters to her during their marriage. There's a book called Gustav Mahler's Letters to His Wife, and she burned her half of the correspondence, so we only get his side of the correspondence because when he was away traveling and directing and she was home with the kids, he'd obviously send her letters because they didn't have email and telephone was a bit difficult in those days. So but his letters and her silences kind of form their own narrative. So first her diaries and then their correspondence. It just these two documents taken together kind of form this very powerful narrative where her silences or her self-imposed silences are as loud as his words.
Yeah. I do have this quote from the book because I thought that this like really, and it's about halfway through. It doesn't, no spoilers involved in it, but I felt like this really captured her for everybody out there. You say she was possessed by the most piteous yearning for a friend who esteemed her, who could help her find herself again. For she was a woman who had lost herself. Once she had composed sonatas. Now she was no more than a Hausfrau. I think that's how you say it. But, you can really you can really see, what she was going through. And she was so young. And because he was 20 years older than her. and she was
Yeah.
so young, and to have that, her passion taken away from her at that time. I thought it was beautiful. I underlined it right away. I was like, I love that part. That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just her career or her creativity. It's like her whole individuality was almost erased by that, because if you take away someone's creativity, what's left of them?
And she was, for everybody out there, like, she was young and she was really talented. I mean, she was,
Yeah.
for that time, she wanted to be taken seriously as a composer, at
Yes.
a time that I guess women were not taken seriously.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she worked very hard, and she was a very accomplished pianist. Her teacher thought she was good enough to study in the Vienna Conservatory, and her parents decided that she was just going to get married anyway, so let's not spend the money on this. But she, she didn't want to be a performer of other people's work. She didn't want a career of public performance on the stage. She really wanted to write her own music. And there are these really passionate entries in her diaries. Oh, to write symphonies and operas. I mean, she was really like feverish with ambition, and she tried so hard. And her journal is very, very poignant in that regard.
That's so, what I kept thinking about, like, having never been to Vienna, and you describe it so beautifully, but I had a question, like, was she, because their family, even though her mom married Carl, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
He was a little bit more well to do, but were these, to go to the opera and the symphonies the way they did, was that an expensive thing during that time, or is that what they
Well, the
just did?
Well, opera in the 19th century and early 20th century was mainstream entertainment. It was both highbrow and mainstream at the same time, if that makes sense, because, I mean, they didn't have cinemas, they didn't have television. You had to go out to listen to music unless you performed it by yourself at home. So, I mean, it's still huge to go to the opera in Vienna. I mean, it's difficult to get tickets. I mean, it's usually sold out, and it's a very discerning audience, and they will boo if they're not happy with the performance. I've seen people boo and walk out and everything, so they're very passionate about it. Her To kind of circle back to your question, her family in this, when we meet her in the book here, I'd say middle class. They're not rich, they're not poor, they're middle class. Her mother was from a poor background. She had to start working at the age of 9 to help support the family, because her father was a brewer that went bankrupt. And Alma's father, who died when she was 13, was an artist who was terrible at making money. He was like useless at making money. And so, during her early childhood, they were poor and dependent on other people's handouts. But Karl Moll actually knew how to make money, and he was a social climber, so they kind of definitely affluent lifestyle after he became her stepfather, but they were not like rich. I mean, they didn't live in a huge mansion or anything like that. They lived comfortably and affluently, but they weren't like super rich.
And they did dress, like, it was something that they dressed very fancy to go to also.
Yeah, oh yeah, for the opera, definitely, yeah. Yeah, so that was you were seen in the opera. If you were really kind of upper class or upper middle class, you had your own balcony at the opera. So
Oh.
Alma did have some affluent friends who had their own balcony that was just for that family, but her family just had normal seats unless they were invited to sit in one of their friends' balconies.
Well, after I got done with, I didn't know how far you were going to take her life in the book. And you focused on her marriage to Mahler. And when I got to the end and realized she was 32 when he passed away, she had a
Yeah.
whole other life after. Are you going to write that story?
I hope so. If Ecstasy does well and sells lots of copies, then I think my publisher will want me to write a sequel. So if you're listening to this and you want to find out about the rest of her life, please buy the book.
Yeah, I really do. Like, I'm like, I hoping she's working on the other part, because I didn't realize that she was that young And she
Yeah.
died I was born in 64. She died in 64. And, so from that
Yeah.
time to 64, she had, it was like her second act of life in a way, like that was her first act. And then there's this second act, which is, intriguing. You got me hooked because you can talk about it at the end. I'm like, yes, yes, I want to know what happened to her. I want to know about the
Yeah.
second part of her life, but I think you're not going to have any issues. I know this book is doing very, very well. Like I said, I found it because Barnes and Noble had it on their website as like a book to read. So,
Oh,
that's
oh,
amazing.
wonderful.
Yes. Tell us about the cover. I'm looking at the cover because I just love it so much. It's what drew me in first. And it's a work of art.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I'm so happy with this cover. This is the most beautiful cover art I've ever had. I'm so grateful to Houghton Mifflin Harcourt for, doing such a beautiful job of this. The designer is Martha Kennedy. She's designed several of my other books as well, and she really outdid herself on this one, obviously. The image of the woman with all the flowers is from the Art Nouveau artist Alphonse Mucha.
Mm-hmm.
He was from what's now the Czech Republic, which would have been the Austro-Hungarian Empire in those days. So he would have been Alma's contemporary and compatriot. And so it fits in nicely that way, and it really captures the spirit of that age. And I think also Alma's personality comes through, even though it wasn't based on Alma, and they probably didn't actually know each other. But the image was originally a poster to advertise perfume, which I think is really fun. So she's surrounded by all these flowers, and it was like a perfume ad, but it's just such a beautiful image. And then these kind of big, long, white rectangles with the bold black typeface with the title
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
it. That's supposed to evoke piano keys.
Yes, and I thought that. Okay, when I saw it, I'm like, I wonder if that's supposed to be, a piano, like, because that was her thing, and
Yeah.
it's just like I said when I first saw the cover. I love covers, and of course they draw me in. And this one, I was like, wow, this is a great cover. I just love the colors, and you know, what a work of art that was. And you know,
Yeah.
the title, it's like there were different parts in the book where I was like, oh, that's why it's called Ecstasy. Oh, that's why it's called Ecstasy. Like I
I
had,
love it.
yeah, I had these different, but more than anything, that if I have to say something that I loved about her more than just her talent is that her passion, not just about, it's like she's passionate about her art, but she was very sensual. I don't want to say sexual, but very sensual. And I love that about her.
Oh, great. I mean, I love that about her too. She was just a very passionate person. She loved life.
Mm-hmm. And at a time when I don't know that women were really supposed to express sensuality like she did,
E-
right?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I mean, she was not this kind of prim and proper 19th century young woman who was like straight-laced and repressed. I mean, she really expressed herself and, you know, almost like she couldn't help herself. She had this like enormous life force, and she had to let it out and express herself and experience life with all her senses.
Yeah, and it was, at one point in the beginning, it's kind of like, well, she's in love with him, and then somebody else says they love her, and then she's like, okay, well, I could be in love with him too, and it was like, I don't know, I thought it was so awesome, like because she's young, and that's how we are when we're young, and it's
Yeah.
just whatever liberties you had to take with her, you did an amazing job. So I like I said, I fell in love with her. I want the next book. So you just go tell your publisher. To,
Thank you.
But do you have anything else coming out in the meantime, or are you just doing now like book tours and signings and stuff like that?
Well, my next book that's coming out, we haven't officially announced it yet in Publishers Weekly, but I signed the contract and everything. It's called, the working title is Revelations, and it's kind of going back to the territory of my previous novel, Illuminations, about Hildegard of Bingen. So it's going back to the Middle Ages and the lives of female mystics, kind of different from Alma.
Right.
And it's about a woman named Marjorie Kemp, who was a 15th century English mystic and wrote the first autobiography in the English language. She was also a world traveler. She had 14 children and
Wow.
she was a businesswoman, and her two businesses failed, and she decided that 14 children was enough and she didn't want any more, but she couldn't control her husband. And so she decided that the only way she could deal was by going on pilgrimage. So she became a world traveler. She went to Rome and Jerusalem and Santiago del Compostela in Spain. And on the way, she was accused of heresy and got into all kinds of trouble. But she persevered because she was very quick thinking and quick talking. And her mentor and kind of like spiritual role model was a woman who was very different, Julian of Norwich, who was an anchorite, who was completely enclosed in one cell, and who wrote the first book in English by a woman. So you have these two remarkable women, and they knew and supported each other, and I think that's so beautiful. So Marjorie was very, very earthy, even though she was a spiritual woman. She was very, very earthy. And then Julian of Norwich is kind of ethereal visionary, and they complement each other so beautifully, I think.
Oh, you know what? I want to read all your books, Mary. Okay.
Thank you.
I loved, I love learning history through your books, and I can't wait. Do you have a release date, or you said you didn't have a release date?
Oh, we don't have a release date yet. I'm
Okay.
still writing it, so
Okay.
yeah.
Well, you know where to
That,
find me.
okay.
Because we can talk about it and put it out on its release date. I would love that. I mean,
Oh,
yeah, I would love to.
okay.
I would love to read it. So I just wanted everybody is looking at this cover while we're talking, and I just want to tell everybody that all of your links will be listed underneath here. The Amazon link that you can just hit it. It'll take you right to Amazon. You can hit their buy in one click like I always do because it's so easy. The book is out
Lovely.
and you can get it right away. So thank you, Mary.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I'm so like I said, this was a dream come true for me. So thank you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
And you have a great day and we'll talk soon, okay?
You too. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone, thank you for listening to my interview with Mary. She was in England, and so we did it through Skype audio. I thought it sounded really good on my end, so I'm hoping it does. Anyway, thank you, Mary. Thank you so much for talking with me, and you answered all my questions, and I just love Alma's story so much. I'm so glad that you brought her to life, and it was so amazing, and I can't wait for your next book. But anyway, like I told everybody, all her links will be listed underneath here. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Mary.